Support this podcast via our Patreon and get more writerly goodness. Visit patreon.com/nanocast to join up.
Welcome to NaNoWriMo Every Month. My name is J. Daniel Sawyer. I'm the author of some 20 books, 34 short stories, and numerous articles and other things, and I am your guide on this journey to use NaNoWriMo to level up to professional output levels. Welcome to The Questions, Day 1. In response to my comments about revision, Kane sends in a question about dealing with early stories. He says, "Can we go back and revise them later on?" And there's a few different ways to approach this, one of which is to say, yes, definitely do that. But if you do that blindly, you risk getting caught in a George Lucas trap. After you have grown as a writer, you've also become a different person, and so you go back to those original stories with a different set of concerns than you had when you were writing them, and so you really do risk completely wrecking them. However, there is a way to do it that won't wreck them, and that's by taking the ideas at their core, or the thing about them that made you want to write them in the first place if it still moves you, and reapproaching the whole story more or less from scratch. I've done this a few times. My books, Predestination, He Ain't Heavy, and Silent Victor, were all written off of germs of early ideas or earlier novels that I left by the wayside and then came back to for one reason or another. In each case, it wasn't a rewrite, it was a redraft. And of those three, the only one I really kept anything from was Predestination. I actually kept 2 of the original scenes and just modified them slightly, but everything else about the book went straight out the window. In the other 2 cases, I kept the storyline, but that's not keeping anything from the writing, that's keeping the idea. In each case, there was something about the original story that was beyond my abilities as a writer when I wrote it, and it was a concern or an idea that stuck with me and wouldn't leave me alone, so I felt compelled to go back and take another look at it and see if I might be able to take another run at it. In all of the cases, it seemed to have worked. The books have been very well received, but going back and reading through and rewriting a story in the way that you would normally think about revising when you're years out from having done it, that doesn't work so well, as the example of George Lucas and the Star Wars special editions really does illustrate. The you that originally wrote the story is, like I said, a different you than the you that will go back. You're separated by enough time that you have quite literally grown into a different person. So going back and trying to fix something that old you did would be the same as going into someone else's stories and fixing them, except that, you have the legal right to do the former and not the latter. At best, it would be a successful collaboration between your 2 selves, but those kinds of collaborations are very, very hard to get right, and they don't happen very often. I can think of 2 or 3 examples I know of from the history of literature where that was a successful endeavor. And in all of those cases, they were books that had been picked up for reprint, and there was something about them that was topical and timely, like a political situation they were predicated on that the author didn't have to explain to the audience at the time that he wrote it, but he did at the time it was reprinted. It was something very temporally constrained like that. But when it comes to the sort of thing you're talking about, it's just not a good idea. You're moving backwards, and as an artist, you want to grow forwards. It doesn't mean you can't loot your own past for material, but that material should be raw material, rather than trying to give old material a fresh coat of wax. You've got better and more effective ways to spend your creative energy, and I would very much encourage you to continue moving forward and doing the best you can with every new challenge that you approach. And that's my opinion. For what it's worth, take it or leave it. Keep sending in questions if you want this podcast to continue. You can email me at feedback@jdsawyer.net or leave a comment on the blog. I'll get it either way. And at the moment, I do have a couple more episodes in front of me, so I'll see you tomorrow. NaNoWriMo Every Month is written and presented by J. Daniel Sawyer and produced by Artistic Whispers Productions. Visit our website at NaNoWriMoEveryMonth.com and leave a tip in the tip jar to support this podcast. NaNoWriMo Every Month is copyright 2015 by J. Daniel Sawyer and Artistic Whispers Productions and released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license.